Berlin, Frankfurt, Munich. Germany has so much variety to offer the modern traveler. But there's a city that is so often and frankly unnecessarily overlooked. Hamburg. International, bustling, cosmopolitan, but at the same time so classically, so wonderfully German. Are we getting away with this? Do you think anybody's gonna actually notice?
Why don't we just do the whole episode here?
Despite being the second biggest city in Germany, Hamburg's reputation on the world stage never seems to match its stature and importance. Often overlooked for its more romantic sister cities in the south, Hamburg has quietly incubated much of Germany's modern commercial success. The city's port is the second busiest in Europe, despite being 100 kilometers from the North Sea, and its mercantile background has shaped the city's reputation and rhythm for centuries. In fact, its unofficial nickname is the gateway to the world, and as you explore it for yourself, you'll soon understand why. Hamburg is served by the aptly named Hamburg Airport. The fifth largest airport in Germany, it is extremely well connected to the rest of Europe, but only has a handful of intercontinental flights. Nonetheless, this is a clean, efficient, and modern airport with very few gotchas. It's a great introduction to this city. Hamburg Airport is connected to the city by the S-Bahn train line, which will get you to the central station, or Hauptbahnhof, in about 30 minutes. The trains run every 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the time of day, and a single ticket will cost you just €3.30. One thing to remember when you're coming back to the airport, all trains stop at Ohlsdorf station where they divide, and only the first 3 carriages go to the airport. The rest will take you to some suburban outpost where you will need to find food, shelter, and work if you're going to survive. So, don't fall asleep on the train.
Taxis are an acceptable alternative to the train if you're headed to a far corner of the city that the excellent public transport system won't reach, or you've decided to finally repatriate Mother's collection of antique bowling balls. You can find taxi ranks just outside the terminal and expect your journey to Hamburg proper to cost you around €30.
As with many European cities, Uber's status here is tenuous. But again, as with many European cities, there are perfectly suitable alternatives to Uber, and I strongly recommend that when in Hamburg, you use the alternative. Uber was reintroduced to Hamburg just this summer 2019, and I've seen waits of up to 20 minutes for a car when the previously known My Taxi, now known as Free Now, was 1 or 2 minute wait at most. So the TLDR is grab the app that used to be called My Taxi, is now called Free Now, register and use it. Do not try and use Uber unless you like standing outside in the cold for several hours. There's nothing quite like a German Hauptbahnhof, mainly because I just love saying that word, but also because of the sheer quality of German and broader European train services. And Hamburg is no exception. From here in the central station, you can of course get across the city and the region on the S-Bahn service, but using the ICE and other intercity services, you can get as far afield as Copenhagen, Vienna, Zurich, even Budapest and Prague. And of course, because of the integrated nature of public transport in many of these cities, if you're arriving in Hamburg from any of those cities, you can get across the city with ease because of the metro, the S-Bahn, the U-Bahn, and all of the other integrated services at your fingertips. Whether you arrived here on a plane, on a train, or were finally able to witness the awesome power of a fully operational mothership, once you are here, you have at your disposal a tight and efficient public transport system. The overground S-Bahn, the underground U-Bahn, and the city's buses allow you to explore even the harder to reach corners and crevices of this wonderful city. Hamburg public transport works on a proof of payment system, so while you must always have a valid ticket for your S-Bahn and U-Bahn journeys, there's no barriers or turnstiles to pass through. It's worth mentioning at this point, however, that there are plainclothes and uniform ticket inspectors on all forms of transport, and the fine for not having a ticket is hefty. So, save yourself the cost and frankly the embarrassment of everyone around you knowing that you're a little bit of a dick. So save yourself the cost and frankly the embarrassment of everybody around you knowing you're a little bit of a dick, and have a valid ticket for every part of your journey. Blowing the moisture off my eyeballs, Greg. Not only is Hamburg a port city, but it's also teeming with inland waterways. In fact, it's got more bridges than Amsterdam, London, and Venice combined. So it makes total sense that a great way to get around the city and get a unique perspective is via its arterial waterways. With 6 ferry services operating in the harbor and along the river, you really do have all the major transport food groups covered. See, I really can make anything about food. For me, and I'm sure for you, this is one of the busiest times of the year. I always seem to be on the move, both personally and professionally. But the wonderful thing is, thanks to Audible, no matter where I am or what I'm doing, I always have access to my favorite audiobooks. Audible has an unbeatable selection of audiobooks, including bestsellers, motivation, mysteries, thrillers, memoirs, and more. You can choose 3 titles every month, 1 audiobook, and 2 exclusive Audible originals you can't hear anywhere else. And with the Audible app, I can listen to my favorite audiobooks on any device, anywhere, at any time, be it in the gym, in the car, or on a plane. And speaking of planes, an audiobook I recently devoured, I actually listened to it twice back to back, is Cockpit Confidential by Patrick Smith. Now, Patrick is an airline pilot with decades of experience, and he's written a Bourdain-esque behind-the-scenes tell-all about air travel, even the gnarly bits. It's very funny, hugely informative, weirdly reassuring, and beautifully read by Charlie Thurston. And here's the great news. Right now, for a limited time, you can get 3 months of Audible for just $6.95 a month. That's more than half off the regular price. You get to choose 1 audiobook and 2 Audible originals absolutely free. So to get your free audiobook and 3 months of Audible for more than half off the regular price, visit audible.com/attaché, that's ATTACHE, or text attaché, ATTACHE, to 500-500. There is no shortage of outstanding food in Hamburg. From traditional fare like Spatzel to a wealth of multicultural cuisine, you're never far away from something satisfying and delicious. But first, we breakfast. I'm acutely aware of the fact that we tend to gloss over breakfast in almost every episode. That's mainly because I don't eat breakfast. But it felt wrong to come to Hamburg and not have one of these, a Franzbrötchen. Now, I appreciate that it rather looks like somebody's sat on a croissant, and that's kind of how it's made. There's no sitting involved, but it's prepared almost identically to a croissant, but it's enhanced exponentially by sugar and cinnamon, which are some of the best things in life. So if you're not a breakfast eater like me, I do implore you to try one of these because they are very, very difficult to find outside of Hamburg. The festive season and Germany are 2 peas in a pod, and thousands flock to cities like Hamburg to experience the Christmas markets. And while we may run the risk of eschewing some of the year-round fare, we cannot ignore the seasonal smorgasbord found at these festive smackdowns. And with a bit of help from my hamburger helper brother, Andrew, who lived in Hamburg for several years, we dive straight in. Rather appropriately, we start with sausage.
Traditional bratwurst, white sausage. My favorite is the cheese sausage, or the Käsewurst, which is essentially a bratwurst with cheese, melted hot lava cheese right down the middle.
What more could you possibly ask for?
Sehr gut.
That's so good. Sehr very gut. I'm basically fluent, but in fact, it had me jonesing for more.
Another sausage?
Don't judge me. That means you too, subscribers. It's so good though. Very different from the Käsewurst.
A bit more like a British banger.
Yeah.
That was more like a sort of Austrian Vienna sausage.
An adorable bun. And spicy mustard. Very spicy mustard. Oh, nice. Oh, that's the good stuff right there. Next, carbs, or Kartoffel. Don't eat them, I want some. Did I mention we're brothers?
Potatoes peeled right in front of you.
Watch them peel them in front of you and not dump them out of a bag. Because I've seen that happen before in other less sophisticated Christmas markets, Greg, where they do the old bagged pre-spiralized
You never
potatoes.
think of having crisps with ketchup.
I do, all the time.
Okay. What is Pfaffen?
Pfaffen is a yeast dough
Yeah.
with herbs and onion inside,
Yeah.
and on top ham and cheese, or spinach with cheese, or mushrooms.
Just a light snack then.
I like that there's like 4 different varieties of oven roasted breads available with toppings and ting available.
Everything seems to come with ham and cheese and a bunch of sour cream.
Totally okay with that. It's so good. There is no way that I could have eaten a whole one without hating myself. Or physically impossible.
Well, it's nothing a little serving of Glühwein won't sort out.
They'll never seem to come to Germany in the winter, and I kind of figured out why. Hot wine.
You'll notice that it's lots of Germans here as well as tourists, and it was just quite a nice place to come after work instead of the pub. Come here, a couple Glühweins, cheese sausage, maybe some Kartoffel. Jobs are good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great way to end the day, or start your day.
Start your day. Yeah, if you're feeling particularly up for it, then you can have one of these with a shot of rum in it, and that'll get you going.
Wow.
I think you can have amaretto as well.
It definitely feels stronger than mulled wine.
I'm pretty sure it is. I think your average mulled wine is probably, 8 or 9%, less than actual wine. And this with a shot of rum in it, you'd think we'd be pushing 20.
It's quite sweet, but not in a bad way.
Let's see how many we can drink.
I don't think that we can be in Hamburg and not address the Hamburger.
Yes.
Hamburger is anything that is from this city,
Yeah, so the people call themselves hamburgers.
and something is Hamburger of origin. But the hamburger and its friend the cheeseburger were not invented here. Would you like to know where they were invented and by whom? Then tune in to the B episode of the podcast Mastication Nation. You'll learn everything you need to know about the hamburger, including where it was invented. Not here. That's a plug. Do I pay myself for that?
With Glühwein racing through our veins, we're filled with the confidence that we can handle dessert.
How do you eat it? Like an apple?
I don't know what they call them, and I kinda don't care, but I am in love.
How high do you think they were when they came up with this? Let's just make some cookies and then turn them into a ball.
Very good.
This is the best apple I've ever had.
One apple that definitely will not be one of your 5 a day.
Is it an expensive city? I can't figure it out.
I don't think it is. I think if you compare it to a London or New York, it's cheaper. And if you go off the beaten track away from the tourist areas and around the town hall, you can eat well. You can go out and have a good meal for 2 people with wine for less than 50 euros, which is great. So it's generally a fairly inexpensive city as Germany goes.
Public transport seems unbelievably cheap, all things considered.
Super cheap. If you think what we've had today, a ticket for 3 people, free travel throughout the town.
On all forms of transit.
Boats, buses, tubes, and it will get us to the airport tonight for 12 euros for all 3 of us.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And have you noticed everything is on time?
Yeah, I hadn't until you pointed that out, but you're absolutely right.
It's unbelievable. And for the whole 2.5 years I was here, I can't remember a broken down train or having to wait on the platform for longer than 5 minutes.
Wow. Oh, that's the way it should be. And I've noticed that pretty much everywhere it takes card. Is that generally a safe bet?
You can pay by card in 90% of the places, but have 20 or 30 euros stuck in your back pocket just for a place like this where you can have a glass of wine.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of costs, let's do the rundown. A cup of hot coffee on a cold Hamburg day will cost you around €2.40.
And for a glass of delicious German beer, you'll pay around 4 euros.
And for the most reliable indicator of a nation's cost, the good old Big Mac, you're going to pay €4.19, or around $4.50 US.
So, Hamburg. What's the verdict from an ex-local?
So I love it for 2 main reasons. The international flavor of Hamburg is incredible. So you have 10-15% of your population who are non-Germans. Lots of Turkish people, Chinese, Thai, Filipinos. So some of the best meals I've had around the world. They've been here.
Wow.
And I really, really like the nightlife in Hamburg.
It has a bit of a reputation.
It does. So your average Saturday night, you go out on the Reeperbahn until 4 or 5 in the morning, and then end up down here.
To be sick?
To be sick, but first you'd have a fish sandwich.
Ah, okay. So if you weren't sick before, then that's...
Yeah, soak up the booze and then slink off to bed about 6 or 7 a.m. This was in my 20s when I had a lot more energy and drive to go out. I tend to avoid the main artery of the Reeperbahn because it's lots of cheesy nightclubs, but every vein coming off tends to have beautiful pubs or real quirky places.
Nice. It's a shame to me that Hamburg isn't on more people's radars as a travel destination. This is a city with a lot to offer, especially in the winter months, which I appreciate is counterintuitive. It has a lot of character and a lot of charisma, even if it's not always the most polished of cities. But there's no shame in that. We all have our scars, and they're what make us unique. Hamburg wears them with pride, and I admire that. I can see what drew my brother here in the first place, and having him here with us made our time in Hamburg even more special.